Hey, and welcome back to the channel. Today I want to give you an insight in and around triads, which is really the way that you unlock the guitar neck. Now, what I'm about to show you, I don't see many people talking about this particular topic. When it comes to triads, everybody is speaking about triads these days because yes, triads literally is a way to unlock guitar parts, learn your neck, and become a better player. But there's a missing element that kind of prevents people from getting a proper idea of how triads work when you start interlocking them together and actually playing them over progressions. So if you want to level up your triad game, grab your guitar, plug in, and let's dig in. Alright, so we're going to look at three things today. Just a brief overview of triads. Number two, we're going to look at inversions, really simplifying that for you. And then number three, I'm going to give you a cool exercise to use on the guitar so that you can take this knowledge and practice it in a way that it will become accessible to you. You see, when you just learn about shapes and you visually see them, maybe you understand how they are built and where they come from, but without having the muscle memory behind it to actually execute on that knowledge, then in essence, it's not really going to be of any use to you because you're not able to use it. What I want to do in today's video is I'm going to give you an exercise that after we've gone through the brief overview of triads and inversions, you'll be able to practice this exercise and then just really level up your fretboard knowledge because of the way that you're able to connect things. Because think about that for a moment. When we communicate, like I'm communicating with you right now, there's obviously I'm using ideas that I'm communicating via sentences and paragraphs, and a layer deeper is going to be words, and another layer deeper, it's just going to be letters. Now, letters in and of themselves, it's just letters, it's just information. So that's what we have when we look at notes. The notes in and of themselves, they are kind of like letters in the alphabet. But the notes need to be formed together with chords. Most guitar players do that where they can understand when you take the letters and you make words, you take notes and you make chords. But the problem is they know all these words, but they are struggling to communicate because they don't quite know how to combine the words together in sentences and in paragraphs with the ultimate goal of communicating some kind of a thought or an idea. So that's my goal today, is taking the words, which are the chord shapes, and the notes within those chord shapes and showing you how you can string them together, because when you have these things connecting on the fretboard like this, then you are going to become a much more powerful musician and guitar player, because music is just a language, and when you can string things together to communicate ideas and play melodies and tell stories on the guitar and really even sing on the guitar, that is when you kind of make the transition from the mechanics of music and actually getting into the message behind what you do. And for us as worship guitar players, that's very important. When you are on stage and we are playing praise and worship, we are looking at the message of what's communicated there. You know, it's obviously what Jesus has accomplished for us on the cross, what that means for us, and the everything that we believe from our faith. We are able to support that message. And in order to do that, we don't want to do it in a mechanical way. We want to do it in a musical way. And in order to do that, you need to learn how to make these different connections. So let's go ahead and check out the basic overview of triads and talk about inversions. And then finally, we'll end up by giving an exercise how you can connect all these things together. All right, so we're going to be working in the key of G. When you look at the key of G, the major scale is G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. And if I play that on one string, it looks like this. If I play it in one position, same notes, that's my G major scale. Now, when I take the first, the third, and the fifth notes of that G major scale, I'm going to get a triad. G, B, D. I can also play G, B, D. I can play G, B, D. I can play G, B, D. Those three notes make up my G major triad. G, B, D, G, B, D. I can now go ahead and play with the order of those notes. So let's talk about the degrees. It's the root, it's the third note in the scale, so we call it the third. and the fifth note in the scale, we call that the fifth. So it's root 3 5, root 3 5. Now I can flip things around. I can invert the order. Instead of playing root 3 5, I can play 3 5 root, which will give me 3 5 root. So it's still the same three notes. It's still B, D, and G, but they are in a different order. The moment that I put the third as the lowest note, that is what we call the first inversion. So that means this is G, root position, GBD. This is G, first inversion, which is B, D, G. And I can actually play it over here. B, D, G. It's the same as this, B, D, G. So now I've got my root position. I've got my first inversion. And then I can do my second inversion, which is putting the fifth as the lowest note. So now it's going to be D, G, B. In other words, D, G, B, which I can play over here. D, G, B. So all three of these chord shapes, root position, first inversion, second inversion, all of those make up G. So either we have the G major, root position, it means the root is the lowest note. First inversion, the third is the lowest note. Second inversion, the fifth is the lowest note. So now we've done a real quick recap of what a triad is. It's the first, the third, and the fifth notes of any major scale. So if you want to play a C major triad, you just take the first, third, and fifth notes of the C major scale, etc. When we invert these, 1, 3, 5 is a root position, 3, 5, 1 is a first inversion, and 5, 1, 3 is a second inversion. Now let's go ahead and check out a cool exercise so that you can just go ahead and connect things together. Because a lot of guitar players, they have some knowledge in some areas, but in other areas they don't have any understanding of the fretboard because they just don't use those areas and they don't connect things together. So what I want to show you is kind of a descending triad exercise. So if I start over here, this is a G major bar chord. And if I play G, D, B, D, B, G, B, G, D, and G, D, B, then I've played all of those triads. This is a first inversion, a root position, a second inversion, and a first inversion. Now this is a shape you probably wouldn't really use in this particular area, but you'll definitely use it in other areas. So that's our first exercise, and you can follow along with me. And you heard there was a bum note, not a bum note, but I played another note that I shouldn't have over there. So this is a good exercise to cleanly play the notes on the fretboard. And it's just really a matter of not leaving your finger on both notes. This might sound like arpeggios, and it is, but the standard way of learning an arpeggio would be this. And those are great when you learn the various arpeggios on a guitar, but it's not always that useful in a modern worship context or actually understanding how they all work together. So that's our first exercise. Now our second one is going to start here when it's G with a C shape, which is going to be... So it's... That's all of those were the notes from the G major chord. And then finally we have this, which is going to be based around the A shape bar chord as well as the G shape bar chord. So I'm going to have... And now what I've done is I started over here with the E shape, then I went to the C shape, and then I combined the A shape and the G shape together. And by the way, the C shape also involved the D shape. That's the caged system, which we'll get into another video. But I want you to go ahead and learn these shapes. You can see it on screen right now. learn these shapes in these 3 different positions, and then also pay attention to what the notes are called. So I've got G with the E shape, then I've got G with the C shape, and then I've got G with the A shape. This is going to give you a nice way of how these notes are interlocked. So what you can actually do is you can grab a backing track and then just play over the backing track, and just whatever your skill level allows. You don't have to play super fast or whatever the case may be, but when you can hear this change with chord changes, that makes a big difference. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fire up a backing track, which is a 1/4 progression in the key of G, which means I'll play G over here as an exercise, and when it moves to C, I stay here. You see, I use the C now with the A shape. Then the next time we go to G, I'm going to be in the C shape. And then when we go to C, I'm going to use the E shape. And then when we go to G, I'm going to go to the A shape. And then when we go to C, I'm in the C shape again. And that way I can just map out the chords in the way that the triads interlock with each other, and I cover all the inversions all over the neck. This is an exercise to get your muscle memory trained, and subconsciously you're going to start picking up on how things actually fit in with each other, which will then help you to create better musical ideas because you can connect things in a more musical way. So now we're using a mechanical exercise to just program our muscle memory. I'll fire up the track and let's go ahead and play through all these triad inversions. Alright, so at face value, that might not seem super impressive, but what you are doing is you are literally playing all the triads all over the neck, and you are making use of playing the inversions. Because when you just pick the notes of a chord, you are missing out on some crucial notes. So this is just a great way in which you can go ahead and learn your triads over the neck. By the way, you can do the same for the minor triads as well. If I were to do A minor, I can do it there, here, and I can do it here. All of that was A minor. Let's go ahead and do that same exercise, but this time I'm going to do a 1-2 progression. So we'll play G major, and then we'll go to A minor. Remember, this is an exercise to program your muscle memory and for your subconscious to kind of pick up on how all the shapes interlock, because your ear is starting to hear these inversions being played through from your root position, first inversion and second inversion, because that's all the combinations very important for you to know and understand. Let's go ahead and do G to A minor. So now what I would invite you to do is to go ahead and learn these shapes, because we've just done the major shapes and the minor shapes. We have all of the major and minor shapes. You can go and take various different progressions to go and play this over, and as it just relates to learning the neck and not just learning random notes, but these are the triad notes in all the inversions and all the different combinations that you can play them on the guitar. It's a super handy exercise to program your muscle memory. And if you're looking for a resource like I've just used now, where there's a track in a worship style performed with all the typical worship progressions in all the different keys at different tempos, just go to worshipguitarbackingtracks.com. We've got an awesome resource there with hundreds of tracks in all 12 keys, different progressions, different tempos, and you can go in and then use that as a backdrop for these examples like I've just done, as well as just using it when it comes to being more creative on the guitar and coming up with your own parts. So there we go, guys. That's a look into triads. I really hope you enjoyed that. And if you want to go ahead and check out another video, we've got something lined up for you right here. Click the link and I'll see you there.